This has Muslim rule in Andalusia, the expulsion of the Jews and the Christians. In his diary, Columbus himself placed his venture in the context of the conquest of Muslim Granada by his patrons. It is argued that the Spaniards' success is what they saw as a crusade against Islam, provided stimulus and impetus for their conquest of the New World, which they did so with sword in one hand and Bible in the others, fresh from the triumph over the Muslims, or the Moors. The Latin word for black was not Moro, but nigger, N-I-G-E-R, Niger, or fusco, F-U-S-C-O, for very dark. In some, but certainly not all cases, Moors were described as fuscas. Due to the relevance of this population in the Iberian Peninsula during the Middle Ages, this term may have entered English and other European languages less exposed to this group via its Spanish cognate Moro. It is important to emphasize that the Greeks and the Romans clearly saw black-skinned Africans as a separate group of people. This was highlighted in the Greek word Ethiops, meaning literally a dark-skinned person. The word was applied only to some Ethiopians and to certain other dark and black-skinned Africans. With few poetical exceptions, it was not applied to Egyptians or the inhabitants of Northwest Africa, such as Carthaginians, Numidians, or Moors. The understanding of Egyptians as distinct from their southern neighbors is also clear in the ancient iconographic and written evidence. The evidence also shows that the physical type of Ethiopian inhabitants of the Nile Valley south of Egypt, not the Ethiopians, most clearly resembled that of Africans and people of African descent described in the modern world as Negroes or blacks. In the 8th century, English usage of the term Moor began to refer specifically to African Muslims. In Spanish usage, Moro, Moor, came to have an even broader usage to mean Muslims in general, just as Rumi from the southern Roman Empire came to mean Christian in many Arabic dialects. Thus, the Moros of Mindanao in the Spanish-speaking Philippines, the Moriscos of Granada. Moro is also used to describe all things dark, as in Moor, Moreno, and it has led to many European surnames such as Moor, de Moro, and so on. The Milanese Duke Ludovico, Ludovico II, Moro, was called because of his swarthy complexion. So it's been out there, it's been put, check on Blackamoor on the bridge there.
Yeah, that movie's title is called Free State of Jones.
What's that?
Free State of Jones.
Free State of Jones?
Yeah, that's what the movie is.
Free State of Jones. If you hear people out there talking about join there or whatever, or get down with whatever there, so they can fix your credit and stuff like that, pay them, they fix your credit and all that, just consider this. It has been called the most astounding piece of sleight of hand ever invented. The creation of money has been privatized, usurped from Congress by a private banking cartel. Most people think money is issued as fiat by the government, but that is not the case. Except for coins, which compose only about 1/1000th of the US money supply, all of our money is now created by banks. Federal Reserve notes are issued by the Federal Reserve, a private banking corporation, and lent to the government. Moreover, Federal Reserve notes and coins together encompass less than 3% of the money supply. The other 90% is created by commercial banks as loans. Don't believe banks create the money they lend. Neither did the jury in the landmark Minnesota case until they heard the evidence. First National Bank of Montgomery versus Daly, D-A-L-Y, 1969, was a courtroom drama worthy of a movie script. Defendant Jerome Daly opposed the bank's foreclosure on his $14,000 home mortgage loan on the ground that there was no consideration for the loan. Consideration, the thing exchanged, is an essential element of a contract. Daly, an attorney, represented himself. Daly, an attorney, represented himself. He didn't go get a lawyer or whatever, right? Argued that the bank had put up no real money for his loan. The courtroom proceedings were recorded by Associate Justice Bill Drexler, whose chief role, he said, was to keep order in a highly charged courtroom where the attorneys were threatening a fistfight. Drexler didn't give much credence to the theory of the defense until Mr. Morgan, the bank's president, took the stand. To everyone's surprise, Morgan admitted that the bank routinely created money out of thin air for its loans, and that this was standard banking practice. It sounds like fraud to me, Iron presiding Justice Martin Mahoney, amid nods from the jurors. In his court memorandum, Justice Mahoney said, plaintiff admitted that, in combination with the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis, did create the entire $14,000 in money and credit upon its own books by bookkeeping entry. That this was the consideration used to support the note dated May 8, 1964, and the mortgage of the same date. The money and credit first came into existence when they created it. Mr. Morgan admitted that no United States law or statute existed which gave him the right to do this. A lawful consideration must exist to be tendered to support the note. The court rejected the bank's claim for foreclosure, and the defendant kept his house. Remember, if they're foreclosing, that means he didn't pay all of it. So then how is he able to keep the house if he didn't pay for all of it? Because fraud has no statute of limitations. And once there's fraud, then the person who's being frauded is going to win.
But they're still doing that today, though.
Yeah, because people usually get a second mortgage instead of fight the foreclosure and argue the fact that you guys didn't give me anything.
What was the title of that
There's a
one?
piece of it, they just create the amount of money and a piece of paper.
Yeah,
That's all they do. So
Yes.
it's still going on.
Right.
By saying you owe something.
But now it's the computer.
Yeah, so you still can fight it.
you know.
Because-
But remember that they're going to fight back too.
Yeah, they're gonna fight back.
And First National Bank of Montgomery versus Daly, D-A-L-Y, 1969. Remember that the bank itself, in order to be a bank, they created fraud, right? But they didn't have anything in there. Everything that they have is because they say that they're a bank, and people say, okay, fine, I'm going to put my whatever to you, which gives them collateral.
Right. And they use it.
And then they use the collateral in order to go internationally get stuff, and then now they say, oh yeah, we have skyscraper that we built and whatever like that because we made so much money banking. Well, how are you making money banking if systems are bankrupt $50 billion?
Yeah.
Where you get money to pay people if place is bankrupt?
The whole thing is a scam.
It's a facade.
Right, illusion right in our face.
Yeah.
The court rejected the bank's claim for foreclosure, and the defendant kept his house. To Daly, the implications were enormous. If bankers were indeed extending credit without consideration, without backing their loans with money they actually had in their vaults and were entitled to lend, a decision declaring their loans void could topple the power base of the world. He wrote in a local news article, "This decision, which is legally sound, has the effect of declaring all private mortgages on real and personal property and all U.S. and state bonds held by the Federal Reserve, national and state banks to be null and void. This amounts to an emancipation of this nation from personal, national, and state debt purportedly owed to this banking system. Every American owes it to himself to study this decision very carefully, for upon it hangs the question of freedom or slavery." This one case, right? Because now he's talking about $14,000 mortgage. Last time I checked out here, people paying 300 and whatever thousand or whatever, and they're paying something that's based in fraud. That if you challenge the fraud, just like Mr. Daly did, hey, where do you guys get the money to lend me? Well, we created it out of thin air. Oh, all right, cool, I'm going to pay you guys now. What do you mean? You created it out of thin air, then you should be able to get rid of it. Just the same way that you created it.
Make an entry, make a book entry.
Right? It's the book entry. Just write something on that side and then put the little line and then put 0. And then, because why? Because everything's paid for. Because it's a debt system that we've been born into.
Yep.
It's not a system based in real money. It's a system based in credit, debit, swipe, whatever. You know what I mean? Never give something tangible as payment. Unless you're a farmer or whatever like that, you go to the other guy, you say, here's some potatoes, or thanks for the cabbages or whatever like that. And then that's money between guys on the farm.
Right.
But, you know, when the guy on the farm comes out here, he's telling people, you know, notes. He's not giving people, oh yeah, well, you know, I got this toaster right here, you know, I mean, how much cabbages can I get for this toaster that I don't need anymore? Oh yeah, give me stuff, right? You know, so they took away the idea of real, tangible exchange and created the illusion of exchange. And then people are living the illusion, which means they're not living because it's illusion. You know, and then on top of that, we have the black thing on top of that we got to deal with, right? Because property can't own property. So all these people who say that they own a house, but they're black, and they own a bank account, and they own a 401k, and they own all this, stuff. But when you check their name is Johnson, Jeffrey, and all that type of stuff. They say that they're Asiatic, they're black people. All that stuff is owned to whoever they got a birth certificate for. And they really don't own that stuff that they're claiming they own. They're just renting, borrowing.
Blackamore?
Yeah.
Blackamore. Now, so it's black.a.more. Now, a dark-skinned person, especially black, and it says 4A, so I'm just going to go define black, 4A. Person belonging to any of various population groups having dark pigmentation of the skin. Black. Blackamore.
So they said, blackamore, now. And then they break it down in the definition. Black, adjective, more, noun.
Black is in small b, and more is in caps. Cap M.
Okay, so they're letting people know that black is adjective and more is noun in the dictionary. That if you ask any of them, they'll say, you know, the white man, whatever like that. Okay, fine, it's the white man's book.